Imagine a startup pitches a product that lets your manager track your emotions, reward you for smiling, and give you a high five on an app that's like Yelp for hourly workers. That's Gage. In the last video, I showed you their Techstars pitch from 2024, and that was basically a disaster. The TLDR was that it gave you a score that you take with you from working at these jobs.
Which is why I built Gage, the first transferable employment record for the shift and hourly workforce. We are the first platform that connects employers with employees within a community. It replaces their resume. To the employer, Gage is a dynamic team management system that drives accountability, communication, and performance.
So you can imagine how easy it would be to gamify that system, to get people to do things or not do things, basically discriminate without anyone ever knowing. Like, for example, if you work at a fast food place and you say no to taking someone else's shift because it's your day off, well, maybe that person was friends with the manager and that wasn't very cool of you. So now they team up and collectively agree not to give you any more high fives on the app, to send you a message and make sure you don't do that again, because the Gage algorithm is always watching and you don't want to drop below a 500 because then who will ever hire you again? Anyway, so that was the video I made a couple days ago. We'll call it Gage 1.0 because they actually left a comment on the last video saying that they no longer have a score and they're working on Gage 2.0. So let me show you what they said, and let's go over what they addressed and everything else they didn't. But thanks to everyone who's taken the time to comment and share feedback. We genuinely appreciate it. We've seen a lot of reactions, questions, and assumptions based on last year's Techstars pitch video, and it's come a long way since then. They say that the pitch being discussed was just a pitch. It showed a snapshot of an early idea, not the full product, and definitely not where Gage is headed. Isn't it a little bit more than a pitch when you already have businesses signed up for it and you're doing 60,000 ARR in 6 months?
Last year, we launched a beta in our community, onboarded over 60 businesses, over 3,000 employees, got up to $60,000 in ARR. This was all within 6 months, y'all. 6 months. We still have 200 businesses on our wait list. Now, the most exciting stat is that half of our accounts came from referrals, proving LinkedIn-style network effect and organic growth. Even better, because our business customers are experiencing a 50% increase in retention, which they are, we're able to drive revenue through subscriptions as we expand.
I seems a bit more than a pitch. Sounds like it's already implemented and working. So here, they go with the emotional appeal. We're not Big Brother. We're not some faceless tech company. We're not an evil corp. We're a team of 4 people who've worked in kitchens, construction, worked in offices, retail, and more. We care about them because they're our people. They say long before this video ever came back up, we already decided to remove the Gage score, and in beta testing, many users appreciated the gamification and motivation that the score offered, while others felt it was confusing, intrusive, and not aligned with their needs. After more testing, it became clear that the feature was too divisive and ultimately unnecessary. So we pulled the early beta from the App Store and got to work on Gen 2. Gage 2.0 won't use a score at all. Instead, it highlights what really matters. Okay, here we go, everyone. How often you're recognized on the job, your commitment over time, the network you've built, the skills, licenses, and certifications you've earned. And they're introducing a new kind of resume made specifically for the shift in hourly workforce with no score and no surveillance. They say it's built to give workers ownership of their progress, recognition, and records. Everything lives with the individual, not the employer. When someone changes jobs, their data goes with them. It's theirs to keep, to share, delete, or make private. It doesn't belong to a platform or a business. It belongs to the worker. Gage has always been for the workers. That's the mission. That's the product. Okay, so that was a really long response comment that didn't really address too much or almost any of the questions I posed in the last video.
So the issue is clear. These employees simply don't care. And who can blame them?
But here's another question. If workers can just delete and edit all of their Gage data, then what's the point of it as a resume or credibility system at all? Why would an employer trust any of it if you can just edit it? Commitment over time, which isn't always up to you. You could be wanting to work at the job you have all day long, but if they say, sorry, get out, then you have to. That doesn't mean your commitment isn't there. Do you get punished for that? You can't really have data that is both fully editable and deletable by the user and the employee, so it's owned, and trusted and used by employers to judge them as a mark of good character or a good resume or whatever. So it must be accurate, because if I can delete every low recognition week before applying to a new job or remove quiet periods or change my commitment over time, then the system is basically just linked in with extra steps. Who verifies the accuracy of the data on this app? Who moderates false shoutouts? Who audits the toxic managers boosting their favorites? Who audits whether context is captured for why someone left the job? Was it really because they weren't committed, or is that just what the app says? Why would anyone use Gage? If you're a worker, there's not really an upside to it, unless every employer demands it. And then if you're an employer, you can't really trust the data that the workers have because they can just change it or delete it. They don't say who's ensuring accuracy, so how is anyone accountable? Like, again, if workers can just write their own resume, why would anyone use Gage? You already control your own narrative on LinkedIn. You can leave out toxic jobs or bad managers that thought you weren't committed, even though you showed up early and stayed late every day. If you're using Gage, you're basically stuck with a metadata-driven vibe profile shaped by shoutouts, internal politics, and a whole bunch of other subjective things. It's like, here's your report card written by your coworkers, your boss, and the group chat. But it doesn't even matter because you can just delete the report card after. So my next question would be, who actually benefits at all from using Gage? Well, I guess it would be the businesses, right? Because they're the ones paying to use it. Because if a business can get their employees to use that, they're essentially able to track them without calling it that. Because they can see who's engaged, committed, and recognized without needing to monitor emails or cameras around. So they're not tracking you or surveilling you, but they do keep a score, but not a score of how many times you're recognized on the job. So now companies can just watch who's a real team player and who's not. This would allow businesses to justify people for getting promotions over other people. Even though there's no score, you could say something like, well, their engagement was in the bottom 40th percentile. It's like a new data stream for workforce behavior analytics. Because if they can access usage metrics, vibe history, shout out frequency, and network mapping, then companies can build reports off of this. They can make things like the top 10 culture fits. They could look for engagement drop predictors. Companies get to look modern and worker friendly without offering any real benefits at all. They can sort through people using crowdsourced vibes instead of evaluations. From my perspective, it just doesn't look like it's built to help workers. It looks like it's built to help employers justify decisions and filter people and delegate judgment to data that no one can really challenge, because it's a proprietary algorithm. I just don't imagine any managers going, okay, let's pull up your Gage profile and check your network connectivity and commitment for the last 6 months. No manager at the UPS store scrolling a Vibe dashboard on their lunch break. Another big problem here is that hourly workers don't control the environment, and the things they're being rated on or scored without a number are still really outside of their control. So the data for these hourly workers just probably hurts them if they don't fit in. You don't get to choose who your coworkers are, whether your manager is fair, whether anyone gives you shout outs, whether you are recognized for being committed, whether your shift is slow and boring so you look disengaged. Why would you volunteer a workplace generated personality report that could make you look worse? It makes workers become rewarded for being socially performative, not competent at their job. It's all about looks and optics. So I just don't think workers would ever show their Gage score metrics off voluntarily, not unless they're forced to. And then once that starts happening, it stops being optional and starts becoming Black Mirror nosedive. Why would I pull up my Gage profile when I could just say I worked closing shift 5 nights a week without quitting? Why would I show the Gage app when I could just show a resume that says I trained 3 new people and still hit my numbers? Why would I show the Gage app when I could just have a resume that says I showed up when Carl didn't, again, for the 5th time this month? That's probably not going to be on the Gage app. And if it was, that person's just going to delete it. Why would I show them the Gage app when I could just have a resume that says my manager tried to promote me without a raise and I didn't flip a table? I stayed committed. Why would I show someone the Gage app when you could just say, I've worked at Applebee's for 3 years? Do you know what that does to a person? And if all their app data can be edited and deleted anyways, then why use it? And if they do use it, why would anyone trust that data? If a business knew that you could just change it to be whatever you want, why would you ever show that to a business? Why not just show them your LinkedIn or your resume? Like, why show off a glorified vibe report when you can just tell the real human story? How do you stop forced participation also? Like, what if you're told to go get shout outs? There's no mention of like pressure, coercion, or anything like that. And then also there's not really any mention of who sees what. Can coworkers see each other's vibe data? If this entire app is built to reward workers but sold to businesses who would literally let them work for free if they could, it just doesn't make any sense. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, click subscribe to see more. Having said all that, I hope everyone is doing really well, and I'll see you in the next one.